so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're amazing. Is that not the most ridiculous picture? So if you ever wonder what you get when you get knighted from France, you get that little medal that I'm wearing in that. See, it's I don't get to cut in line at the Louvre or anything. Don't worry. And it's really nice too because I don't speak any French. And that I'm a little bit proud of because everything I'm about to talk about with you is driven by this place of great ignorance that I come from, right? I think that in this world, we talk about a hard world and we talk about what soft means, and I think that that has to be one of the 100 most difficult topics to speak about, but you picked the right person for this job because it ties in really beautifully with the entire theme of what we're going to focus on today, which is about the alternative economy around reading and writing and literature and what it takes to build a community in a city like this, right? What a beautiful view. It sucks you all have to look at me instead out at this former Blackland prairie that's been reclaimed by the asphalt gods. And you think about what beauty means, and you think about a city like this, and I remember the first time I ever came to Dallas, Texas in the blazing hot summer of 2005. I was on tour with the band, and we rolled up to a club in Deep Ellum that's no longer there, and we all, as a bunch of guys from Wilmington, North Carolina, said, why on earth does this city exist? It is hot, it is flat, it is paved, and it seems like when we came in from Louisiana, it started over there, and it was Dallas all the way to Dallas, you know? And I know you guys know if you come the same way from Oklahoma, it's Dallas all the way down, right? I think Dallas goes all the way into Oklahoma now, and I don't mean to offend anybody by that. And so this picture is a bit ridiculous intentionally because books have been taken too seriously for too long by too many people. And it has been an exclusionary and secretive business. And I'm here to pop that bubble and to invite you in. All right? And so it's kind of a perfect place to talk about that. And I have many things in a very short amount of time, but thankfully I talk really fast. So first off, I want to thank Creative Mornings. I want to thank everybody I know in this room, which is a surprising amount of people. And the people I don't know personally, I've seen a lot of you present at amazing things in town. So just thank you. It's really inspiring to be in this room. It's inspiring to be here at East Texas A&M Dallas. I want to thank them for training one of my favorite people on earth, Justin Childress, who is an alumni of that MFA program you just heard about. And so I can vouch for it because Justin has done a lot of work at Deep Ellum ever since I moved to Dallas. He's one of the first friends I made. And he's done work, he created our website, he's helped tweak our logo to make it a little more professionalized. He does book covers with us. He teaches at SMU in the Maddie program and works with those students to give them hands-on first-person experience too, something we'd love to do with East Texas A&M as well, if y'all are down. And so what it boils down to is it takes a community, right? And so I get this ridiculous picture and I get to stand in front of the room, but it's only because there's dozens of people behind me who have helped every step of the way, and I don't ever want you to think that this is a solo endeavor, right? I have to thank my wife, thank my kids. They keep me grounded. They don't care I've been knighted. You have to remember that. And it goes way back. Before I ever moved to Dallas, I was at Duke University before here. It's where I came up with the idea to do Deep Ellum in Dallas. When my wife, who's from Weatherford, got a job in Dallas, and I said, what on earth am I going to do with a master's degree in Russian culture in Dallas, Texas? And so for a year before I moved to Dallas, I sort of came up with a business plan. I was reading all these books and doing a lot of research on the city, trying to find out if y'all existed, and you do, so thank you. And then I worked with a really amazing woman named Grace Kohut, who lives in Boston, and she's a part of Creative Mornings Boston. So this is for you, Gracie, because I know you're watching, and she is amazing. And so just thinking of all the people around the world who might get to watch this one day, I hope I say 3 interesting things, okay? Because it's rare to have a book publisher come and talk to your group, right? There's not a lot of book publishers outside of New York City, right? And when I look at books that I read, and I read books just like you, I'm no different. I'm not particularly intellectual. I am a little silly. But I am also really serious about this in that I like to read serious literature, and I also believe that every single person in the world can and should engage at that level. And what we have is an epidemic of non-reading in our society. It seems intentional, right? It seems that it's been created in some way to keep people from reading and writing books that represent their interests, their background, who they are, and where they want to go and what they want to be. And we have to counter that. We have to provide the solution. And so Deep Vellum was created as a nonprofit in Dallas to address this. And so if you think about that as a problem, there's something really hard in not being able to read. And not just not being able to read, but not continuing to read, right? I have a son who's 9 years old. Shout out Andy if you ever watch this one day. And there's a statistic out there right now that, the vast majority of kids, somewhere around 75, 80%, stop reading for fun at the age of 9. And if they do, they will never read for fun again, right? I'm not going to make you all do a show of hands and say who has not read a book in the last 10 years in here, but I don't think you would be alone, right? The pressures of the world are keeping you away from the act of reading. They're keeping you away from books. When I moved to Dallas in 2013, the hard problem we had to face was every headline in every major newspaper, magazine, everything any of y'all would have been looking at back then said that books are dead, no one's reading, why should you care? And so I had a really great business proposal, and I said, what if you did care? And what if you did read? And what if you did start a bookstore in a city that had no independent bookstores? And what if you did publish writers from here and from every corner of the world who didn't have access to that sort of global marketplace of ideas that we are all particularly interested in, right? This is kind of a self-selected group of amazing people who maybe hadn't thought of this problem before because it's never been addressed. And again, it's like that old commercial for all of us old millennials, remember? I look at a book I read, I open it up, where to get published? New York City. New York City! I want books from Dallas. I want books from Commerce, Texas. I want books from Corsicana. I want books from El Paso. I want books from Laredo. I want books from Wilmington, North Carolina, where I grew up. I want to understand who I am and where I'm coming from, but not just. And when I was 14, I read a Russian novel, and it blew my mind open because it made me feel small, and it made me realize I was not alone in this world, and I didn't know anything about the other. You ever heard that term, the other? You want to talk about a physical hard barrier? When you turn on the news every day, you see the other, right? And when you look at the other, you are faced with a very tall, hard wall that is meant to keep you separate from them, right? And that wall of division can be chipped away at over time through a pretty radical tool. It's a soft tool, so it takes time, called empathy. We're familiar with the concept of empathy. This is a pretty empathetic room. Empathy and compassion, these are soft power tools that you can use to break down the walls, the hard that we see and we feel. We can feel the stress. If I start talking about current events, y'all are going to, cortisol levels are going to rise up. But I tell you to think about the book that changed your life, and you're going to feel like, go back down, right? Think about the book that changed your life. What was the book that changed your life?
Harry Potter.
I don't need to know, but I appreciate that. it was a rhetorical. But I love that. Harry Potter is one that's super common, but when we talk about the book that changed our life, you're going to get flooded with the good feelings. Right? You're going to get flooded with the idea that other people have shared this. It brought you into conversation or communication with someone else. And there is a ton of science, because we're all rigorous people, that says that if you read fiction, you develop empathy. Scientifically proven that if you read fiction, you're going to be a better person, right? Now, I think that's a self-selecting group, too, of people who are reporting this. But also, I don't think all fiction is created equally. You know what I'm saying? I don't think if you are out there reading all that romanticy smut is making you a better person per se, but that's just one genre. I can pick any genre. I don't think if you read all this hard sci-fi, it makes you a good person alone. I don't think if you read all the literary fiction of the world alone, it makes you a good person. You gotta read and keep reading is what it boils down to. Literacy is about learning your ABCs, and it's about reading every day for your entire life. Literacy is an ongoing process. And if you stop along the way, you start to lose it. You lose the habit, you lose the form, you lose the critical connections that come from the ability to see that the other and you have a lot more in common than you have separating you, the differences between us, right? And I think that that's something very important. Because when we talk about soft in terms of books, I think like I was talking to Megan a couple weeks ago, and we were chatting, and she's like, I mean, the first thing that came to mind was like soft cover books. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a really great way, right? But what's kind of funny is like this room, I think we probably all read soft cover books, right? Like when we opt in, typically reading what do we call a paperback, right? Like paperback books. Now, there is a select group of people in this world that don't read paperback books. They read hardcover books, which cost a lot more money than a paperback book, right? And there's a pretty revolutionary business. If y'all haven't had them come talk, you should sometime. Half Price Books over here. Boy, they have a good business model. And in a lot of towns, especially smaller towns and suburbs of the country, they're the only bookstore. They provide a very, very, very important role in the communities. And for us in Dallas, their flagship here on Northwest Highway is a big deal. And they have taken something really interesting from an industry that is built on waste. That's the publishing industry, right? Is anyone in here, all y'all smart people, you can call out. I do want to know one thought here. How many books are published in America every year? Anyone have an idea? 300,000? More than 300,000, less than 1 trillion. 2 million. I don't have anything to give away. You can have my notes after, right, if you want. Like, keep it for your archive. 2 million. Now, 2 million is a rough estimate based on what is a book. So what's a book? Yeah. Is it the paper? Is it the thing bound? Or is it the collection of words inside some sort of vessel, right? Anybody here read e-book? Listen to audio book? Yeah? Are those book? They have no binding. The vessel is your phone, you know, your device, whatever it may be. And that's an important way to bring people together too, right? And so something really important about the publishing business is people read in a lot of different ways. And they write in a lot of different ways. And there's something really beautiful about that because everyone in here has a story. That's a fact. I don't know a lot of you, but I could tell that you could sit down and write something really amazing. It might be your family story. It might be your own journey. It might be a sci-fi tale set on a planet I've never heard of with people speaking a language I don't know. Right? And whatever that may be, it deserves to be told. It deserves to be published. It deserves to be read. Your story is not less important than that of someone who just won the Nobel Prize last week from Hungary, right? Not less important than someone who's a best-selling author, someone who has access to certain types of creative writing programs or access to the publishing business. And don't worry, I'm not enough access to be important, so you don't have to ask me. But you have a lot of hard stops that keep you from doing the thing, right? And I think that's something really beautiful about creativity that we all know, right? Is that you can get stuck in a rut. We can get stuck in a reading rut and we can get stuck in a writing rut. And there's something really important about finding a way out. And so something soft is the invitation. And so why Deep Vellum was founded as a nonprofit was to provide an invitation to the world to come together in something that we lack enough of in our society, and that's dialogue. The mission of Deep Vellum is to bring the world into conversation through literature. And we do that from Deep Ellum. And everybody knows that Deep Ellum is the most dialogue-driven neighborhood in Dallas history, right? Just think about all the ideas that have been discussed over many drinks in that neighborhood for the last 150 years. But it's not a neighborhood that has historically been known as a literary hotspot, even though it is and has been. In a city, Dallas, that is not known for being a literary hotspot, although it has been and is. And today, you can look around the city and see an extraordinary amount of literary endeavors happening in every quadrant of the city. Like right now, there's a huge literary festival happening in Oak Cliff called the Hay Festival. And so if you're not familiar with it, this is my invitation to you to go to a thing that I don't have anything to do with technically. Right? There's no gain in it for me other than it would make your life better. And as people who live in my city, in my community, it would behoove you to come on out. And for those who are watching at home, I guarantee there's something literary happening in your neighborhood in all 70 countries right now. And if you're not feeling a part of literature, just go to something and say hi. Right? And having a bookstore is a very vital part of what we do at Deep Vellum. It's been open for 10 years now. And we all know in Dallas retail terms, 10 years is like 100 years in other cities, right? And to have a bookstore in Deep Ellum, Texas through a pandemic, whatever's happening in Deep Ellum right now, the et ceteras. And I don't just mean crime. I mean the construction, man. Are you kidding? We are, goodness gracious. But no amount of calls to city leaders are going to solve the problem that they just replaced pipes that were built 120 years ago, right? That's pretty cool. I got to watch them one day take a big old backhoe and pull up all the trolley tracks that ran down Commerce Street, because once upon a time we had one of those cities that we dream of. But here's the thing about dreaming. If we can all dream together, then it can be done. right? I'm from North Carolina. Does anybody in here happen to know the state motto in North Carolina? Extra credit. I'll give you a free book. Dream bigger? That's a great one, but no. What was the second? Huh? First in flight. That's on the license plate, so you get 1 point. No, great. Jeez. No, but that's also, Kathy, that's so funny. All right, so no one's going to get it, but I know it because I have it tattooed on my stomach, so I look at it every day. It says, esse quam videri, and it's Latin for don't talk about it, be about it. Yeah. Right? And so there's really something to that, right? And you can move to a place that doesn't have something you like. You can think about the things you don't have, and these are hard and rigid obstacles, and you need to think about what it takes to kind of come together, right? And so when we think about the soft process of literature, it involves you. You are the main character. Right? And we are all characters in the story of a city, and it's being written in real time by us, for us, right? And the way we can come together and to envision things together. There's a soft process of invitation. There's a soft process of inviting you to write. There's a soft process of editing a writer, right? To shape the project into something ready to be shared, right? And that sharing process is what we call publishing. And then what DVellum's sort of special focus has been, and will remain for all time, is to not just think about the hard publishing business. Success in publishing from those New York publishers is to sell as many books as possible. Right? That's it. That's the only indicator of success. This is an industry that is okay with the fact that 96% of the books published in the last 100 years are by white writers. This is an industry that's okay with a decimated landscape of American letters in which there were very few bookstores in our cities, right? There were very few places to have your work published if you didn't come from some sort of conventional background writing a very conventional story. So you ever walk into a bookstore or front page of an Amazon or notice that all the books kind of look the same? And gosh, if you've read some of them, they read the same. There's a reason for that. But I think what we're looking for is the difference, right? And so the soft economy that we're trying to propose is an alternative economy, right? In which the sale is not the sole indicator of success, right? It's about changing a narrative and inviting more people in, because it's not something I or we can do alone. And the more of us that can kind of come together, we can change the world. And one of the things we really seek out is the international nature of that. So it's really beautiful to get to hear the amazing statistics of like 10 years of this amazing group. 70 countries is a lot. Right? I don't think anyone here could name all 70 countries, right? But when you think about what that international connection means, something that really attracted me to Dallas was DFW Airport. Right? I can fly just about anywhere I want today, right? And so what we want to be is a publishing house and a bookstore that offers you a ticket to the same amount of destinations that DFW Airport can provide. I also love Love Field, don't get me wrong. It's just like no international destinations yet. So got to use DFW, but can we create the DFW of literature? Can you create a space in which the world can come to Dallas the same way that you can go to the world? That's actually what dialogue is. You think about the soft power that can come from the act of communication with the rest of the world. To be a crossroads city is one of the greatest places to live because you're constantly surrounded by people who aren't from here. It's good to be from here. But how many people in here are not from here? For those at home, that's the majority of the room. In fact, I would say the vast majority, a super majority, if you will, for those who are interested in politics. Right? And here we are in a city of outsiders, but yet we all can kind of come together. Why do we have to play the game of the way it was yesterday? Why can't we bring our ideas together from all the places and all the amazing backgrounds we have and to say the whole world's got great ideas and we can implement them here? That's what this city was built for. The energy of Dallas is to be the city of the future, right? And why do we have to make the same mistakes our predecessors made? They say the sins of the Father are not our sins, but we have to go prove that, right? And we have to go do something about that. And that's kind of the joy. This alternative economy that says, come on in. We got something for you. You may not have ever read a book we've published. Has anyone here ever read a book we published? Yeah. That's a super minority of the room for those at home. That's less than 10, right? And that's okay. I'm still going to be your friend, right? But I am going to invite you in. And we got a lot of books now from a lot of countries. And we try to be, like I said, the DFW airport. So we have books now from over 100 countries, over 80 languages, translated into English. And when you think about softness, your first thought may not go to translation. But translation is a really beautiful process because every time we meet another person, we translate in that communication. And even when you speak the same language, right? But again, I grew up in a small town in North Carolina in a monolingual household, like most American white boys, right? And so in there, I wanted to go and meet the other, to know who they are, and to know how we can know each other. For me, literature is that vessel, right? Translation is the act through which we can take the other and bring them into this conversation. We could take the whole world that exists out there and put them on the page and share them through time and space in a conversation that can uplift the soul, and it can change the way that we see the other, the way we see ourselves, right? A book in translation doesn't just change the life of the person being translated in our language, it changes us. It expands our ability to see what's possible, right? And so next time you're in a bookstore, think creatively. Next time you're looking for something to inspire, think about a book. It doesn't have to be War and Peace. It doesn't have to be 800 pages. Don't be scared. But War and Peace is easier to read than you think. I will warn you. It will change your life. It's not the book that changed my life. That was a very different Russian novel. But it is a process that you have to be invited into. And so don't feel ashamed for not knowing everything about books, because I don't know everything about books, and I know a lot more than you. But that's not the point, right? I just get to do this every day, and it's a lot of fun. But if you wanted to get knighted, I could show you a pathway. But it will take looking at things a little differently, right? So we publish over 200 books now translated from the French language. It's more books translated from French from any other publisher in the history of the English language. That's something to be proud of, right? But the way that had been done in the past was authors from France. We publish authors from 13 different countries who write in French. There is a way to do this to think bigger. And this group can do that. I have time, 5 minutes for Q&A, rapid fire, because this is where it gets real. So let's do a lightning round of questions. In the back.
So it sounds like you're well on your way to solving like the supply problem. What about the demand problem? How do you get us to want to read, 13 different French writers from around the world? What is that dynamic of like encouraging that behavior?
Yeah, you got to induce demand, right? Because essentially it doesn't happen already. I say yes to all of these. So thank you, Creative Mornings, for the invitation to invite 70 people to come read a book with me. The way that advertising and marketing and all that kind of fun stuff works is fairly traditional, so you have to go to people where they are. The way that we do that in the community, though, because like in the book publishing biz, there's a way to do that, so you can see some ads in literary spaces for people who are already kind of clued in. The other way we do it that's a little bit more revolutionary and something that helps make us a bit of a unicorn in the publishing business is having the bookstore space to invite people to events, right? Event-driven publishing is very important because it takes people into a space based on something they're interested in, and then introducing them to everything else, but then also going to where people already are that are not included in literature. So we do a lot of work with library schools, community nonprofits, universities, and things like that. And not just talking to groups of literary people. I love speaking to business classes, right? You have a bunch of very intelligent people who are completely functionally illiterate, right? I'm sorry, it's true. If you don't read fiction or poetry, you are functionally illiterate. And so if you, I love nonfiction, don't get me wrong. I'm listening to a book about UFOs right now, right? And like, it's a good book. It's not one of those conspiracy theory ones, but it's like, just saying. But you have to keep going, right? And so you got to go to where everybody is. And that's a really important thing. That's what the publishing industry hadn't been doing for so long. You can go to the same people over and over and over again and make plenty of money in publishing. I'm a little bit more interested in who has not been part of that. And so when we think about underrepresented writers, which is something the introduction from you said, we think about underrepresented writers is what we set out. That's who we thought we were serving, and very quickly realized, oh my gosh, we're actually serving readers first, and our readership has been completely underrepresented. You have been underrepresented, right? All the great books I'm talking about, whether it's a book like The Accommodation here in Dallas that like changed the conversation in the city, right, when we republished it, or it's a work by a great poet from South Oak Cliff like Sherry Zantia. right? Or it's a book by Nobel Prize winner from Norway, Jan Fosse, that we publish. Those books would not get to you if we did not have this soft approach to publishing that says the sales today are not enough. It has to go through time and space to find its readership. And we'll go to those who've been left out.
So if you were to guide a poet on who has 50 poems, would you guide them to publish a chaplet or an actual poetry book?
Oh man, if you're going to do a chapbook, that is a totally different alternative economy for publishing. 50 poems is almost book length, so it just depends on how long each poem is. I'm like looking over at Madison, what's up? One publishing friend in the room. And in the space of 50 poems, I think you need to share it with someone who knows about that question, a poetry editor of some kind, a publisher, to see if it's ready to be made into a book. A chapbook is great. It's a great artistic way of getting something out in a very, usually small market, if that makes sense. A chapbook is like a handmade object of book. And you can do it. It's like akin to a zine. It's much more word-based than a zine, but it's also handmade. Letterpress is a very common way to do chapbooks. So if you had 50 poems, I think that's too long for a chapbook. Even if it were Rupi Kaur length poems, that's too long. But you're also not quite long enough for a book. So if you have 96 pages of book, that's what you need to make a poetry book.
Would you recommend people, writers, artists, get an agent before working with you, or do people work directly with you?
With us, you don't need an agent to work with us, but getting an agent is great. A literary agent is one of the other people in the machine who can take your manuscript, the text, and help get it ready for market. But if you have a literary agent, their real job is to sell your book for as much money as possible, which means you don't need them to work with us. But you are required to have a literary agent to get to the big 5 publishers, right? The big 5 publishers control 90% of the books in the country in every genre. And so if you wanted to get to them, you definitely need a literary agent. And that's a whole process. And we sell a book at the store that I give to everybody who's interested in that kind of question. Which is every step of the way in the book publishing business by a woman named Courtney Malm. It's like everything you need to know about getting published at every step of the way. So because there's not someone who can tell you everything. And by me saying, oh, you don't need an agent to get to me, I don't necessarily need to read your manuscript right now. I may not be the right home for your work. I say we may not be the right home for your work. So you have to be super familiar with the places that you would want to be published. And you can make a dream list. Like my work is like George R.R. Martin. And you'd be like, okay, buddy, yeah. And you're like, well, my work is like Harry Potter. And you're like, okay, buddy. But J.K. Rowling was someone who was just like this once upon a time, right? She was working at Amnesty International and a single mom, and she wrote the book, and the rest is history. So it's a great example of what's possible. And the way that built was actually very organic. It wasn't a top-down kind of thing. So there's all kinds of examples and counterexamples, but getting a literary agent is great, too, because then you have an advocate. And if you're going to work with a bigger publisher, you definitely need that. Kathy. Oh, over here. Where are we going? Who? Go.
What are your thoughts on getting your start with online self-publishing, like Substack and things like that?
That's the alternative economy, right? So publishing online is great because, honestly, you could publish a story on Reddit and have more eyeballs on it than anything Deep Vellum is ever going to publish, right? It's true, right? Substack, same way. Wattpad and all these other community-driven platforms. They're super popular all over the world. There's like some Chinese blog in which people are writing stories, and there is a story on there that is something up to 7 million words long now because she publishes it serially, 1 week at a time. It's just been going on for so long, and I'm totally intrigued by that. But I don't read online, so I'm not the target market. And so when you think about literature, which is something we kind of represent at Deep Vellum, we have 4 Nobel Prize winners. We have authors who are a guy who's shortlisted for the National Book Award right now. This is a pretty elite group. It's not to say it's not for you, but this idea is that there are more people reading a Reddit or a Wattpad or a Substack than are authors who are winning these big prizes. So just keep in mind what your idea of success is. Does it matter to you to have a book that's in a bookstore? If not, there are a lot of ways to publish and find your audience. For us, we're trying to publish some freaky deaky books that people are going to read in 500 years, right? So we want the different and the weird, and with a certain value equation around literary writing that is for everyone, and yet is also it's a more refined version of that too, and comes as a part of a tradition. It's like visual art. Everyone can do it, but why are some people in museums, right? It's not because they're better necessarily, but they're in dialogue with something, and they've gone through a certain process, and it's important like that too. Mm-hmm. Of course, good to see you, Jean.
So my question is, so there's a lot of barriers in reading good books, and one for me is working adult, long commute, and audiobook has been really life-saving.
Same.
And my question for you is, how do you feel about this different
Totally. I am pretty democratic about literature, and I'm super democratic about audiobooks. They've changed my life. I read my first audiobook last summer, and it's gotten me to start running longer distances because I'm like, gotta keep going. I didn't realize how much of my life was B-roll, you know? Washing the dishes, sweeping up, cleaning my kids' mess, driving them somewhere insane far away for a soccer game. So it has allowed me to reclaim reading time that was left out for me. So it's been transformative. And so an audiobook is a great way. It kind of goes back to the original oral storytelling forms. June's an amazing writer and translator, for those who don't know. And so if you wanted to meet someone in here who does that, we published a book together once upon a time. So I haven't seen June in a long time. It's great. And but something that's really interesting when translators work, they often talk about the music of the language. And this is something that can get lost in translation, right? Think about poetry in another language, for everyone who knows another language. Think about the music and the sound and the bounce, right? We all have a rhythm in our own life, and poetry is known for that. Fiction's even known for that. And translators are often talking about the ear. Do you have an ear for translation, right? And do you have an ear for that so that you can bring a little bit of that rhythm and sound and bounce? So a lot of translators read their stuff out loud, and it's really cool because you can hear that when you read a translation, and then it works really well in audio form. Ebooks are cool too, but I will tell you, it's not the same thing as reading a print book. Print books are actually a remarkable technology that is mapped to our human brain. Every language in the world has developed some sort of cognitive recognition of text on a page, and that when you read a text on a page, it goes to a part of your brain for a long-term recall, and it's about spatial recognition awareness and stuff. But when you read an ebook, no matter how paper-like the format, anything you read on your screen goes to the short-term recall part of your brain and it gets recycled when you take a nap. And same thing for an audiobook. It goes in there, but it's kind of like skimming a book. You know what I mean? Right? It's not a deep dive. And it's not to say that, that's good. Skimming a book is great. I recommend it for those who don't do it. And as a famous saying, Nabokov, among many other people, say it. It's like, there is no reading. There is only rereading. Right? Reading a book the first time is pretty superficial, whether you want it to be or not. And the second time you read a book, though, is when you start to go into the deep dive into text, because you're not really so much worried about the superficial plot elements anymore. In the same way they say there's no great book whose ending can actually ruin a great book. I could tell you the ending of a great book, but then the journey to get there is the whole point. I think we have time probably for one more question. No more? Thank you so much, Creative Mornings. Come talk to me after. Thank you. Thank you. Amazing.